about salt. So we didn't get very far. Well, we got far enough that we had this thing baked out. So if you haven't watched this part, and we'll probably go through it tonight if you guys want, I can. I'm gonna save a smart material so we can retexture the next robots like really, really quickly. Just kind of setting up a base kind of look and feel for this thing. Let me pull up some container reference. I'm kind of just looking for like old scratched up. Oh, perfect. Like, yeah, old beat up oil cans and stuff are a great reference for this type of thing. So, okay, let me move this stuff over so I can see y'all. So let's see. Oh, another thing. Let me load up. That's another thing I needed to do. So I'm going to go back here to my bake settings here. I found this out the other day at work. I was baking some stuff with a colleague of mine, and we went through and we were trying to figure out because we had an FBX and we were doing FBX baking and it wasn't baking our material IDs very well. But for some reason, because vertex color for some reason wasn't working, but if we did it twice, it did it. So we'll try that again. So anyways, we're baking the material ID just by itself. That's why I checked off everything. There we go. So for some reason, when you go through and you do your mass bake, it won't bake your vertex color to material or to your ID. But then if you just go and do it manually one by one, it'll do it fine. I don't know. Maybe it's a bug or maybe it's some sort of weird feature, but oh, awesome. We can say ass now. Sweet. Okay, so we're going to texture this guy. But first, what I want to do is I had a question. So I try and save whenever I get questions in here and I can't answer them immediately. I try and save them. If I've missed them, I apologize. The question was, I've been messing around in 3D modeling with ZBrush and Blender since December. I found your video super helpful. Make a video explaining the theory and reasoning behind UV maps, normal maps, and all the other maps. And Painter is a perfect one for kind of talking about that type of thing. But yeah, so we'll talk about that a little bit, and it'll also make Painter make more sense here. So the maps we have, if we go into here to textures here, you're going to see here's our ambient occlusion map, here's our color map, and the UVs we did are terrible. These are just like auto UVs, just spread all over the place. So it's going to be hard to kind of talk about UVs, but basically, if you take an orange and it's on a 3D object, and then you take the orange skin off and you peel it out, make it look like a a flattened globe, or take a globe and peel it off, I suppose. Then you flatten it out. Basically, UVs are the 2D representation of what's on your 3D object. So those are texture coordinates. I want to say, hold on just a second. It was Creativity Inc. by, what's his name? One of the founders of Pixar, Ed Catmull. Catmull. So, Catmull Clark. Let's see. So when you hear like Catmull Clark subdivision surfaces, that's the Catmull from Catmull Clark. I want to say Lambert and Blinn and Fong. Those are all people that came up with the math behind all that stuff. But anyways, Ed Catmull, I think he was the one who did the first Z buffer and texture coordinates, like way, way back in the day when, it was insanity to do that kind of thing. And that's kind of also part of the 3D experience and just working in 3D is you were constantly standing on the shoulders of enormous giants. So everything I do is taking the easy route. I don't have to worry about what a texture coordinate is or how to plug it in Notepad or plotting those points in any specific way or creating a Z buffer. It's all stuff that already exists, or shading models. Really, really smart people already came up with all this stuff, and I'm just kind of using their tools like the idiot that I am. But yeah, so there's a lot of really cool stuff going into what you see here and having it render in real time. Let's see. Emotes. About UV maps, I was wondering, so that's a question from Axel, wondering when straightening up shells is worth it in organic meshes. Okay, that's a good question. So when we did organic stuff on DC Universe Online, sometimes it's nice to have a nice straight line in the middle of or on the sides of organic meshes where seams meet up, like on the sides or in the middle of bodies if you're mirroring UVs, just to make your seams easier to paint across or paint out if you're doing it manually. But now that we have triplanar projection and I don't really mirror that much stuff anymore, although with VR coming back, we might be doing a lot more mirroring nowadays. Depending on the project you're working on, if you're doing VR stuff, you might be mirroring a lot of stuff. Oh, that's too bad. I need to fix that hand on the other side. Oops. Oh well, that's easy enough to fix later. But yeah, organic stuff, sometimes what I'll do in Hedis, or I guess Maya nowadays too, it's easy enough to do. You can just make a selection, a pin selection, and flatten those, and then kind of soften or average the UVs, or what do they call it? Optimize your UVs around those straight points here. So organic stuff, usually not, but on hard edge stuff, yeah, definitely. Although you could do straight lines on organic stuff if you wanted to, say, tile using your UVs and have seams or patterns kind of match up across the seams. But again, with triplanar projection, it's not that big a deal anymore, but your mileage may vary. It was a lot more important back before stuff, when you were doing stuff in Photoshop. It was very nice to have very nice UVs and very nice straight lines on certain objects. But nowadays, now you don't want to do stuff like do a lot of, like if you've got a strip of UVs, you don't want to have it tilted, because what can happen is you'll have aliasing along that tilted line where the border is. So, and you know, if you have any text or anything going this way, the text will look lower res than it has to be, because it's having to compensate for going across an angle. Whereas if you go like this, then all your text will be nice and sharp. So that's just something to keep in mind. But of course, if I go up here to my 2D only, you'll see, yeah, these are my UVs. But again, this is just for pre-pro purposes. However, having said that, everything I'm doing it's not like, well, I have to do it all again if I want to do it for real. False. It's amazing about this program is I can go through and make beautiful UVs, have this thing completely textured up, and then bring that back through just by going in here to edit project configuration and selecting my new mesh. And it'll go ahead, bring in my new mesh with my UVs. And even if I've gone in and painted or stamped, it will remember where my brush was in space painting on my object, and it will reapply my brush strokes. As long as you don't change the position or the size of your object, it'll do perfect. Now, worst case scenario, if you do change the position in your size, what you can do is save off a smart material, and then you can just reapply all of the bulk of the texturing you've done to this object before you get too caught up in it. But you'll be able to do a lot of work just with a smart material. So anyway, here is our material ID, and this was just the poly paint that we applied to our object here. So when we have pieces that are stuck together, if I turn this off, you're going to see. Actually, let's do this. Let's do a fill layer here, and I'm going to fill this with a black color. And hold on. There we go. Fill this with a black color. Then I'm going to do add a black mask so it's masked out. So now if I go in here and I want to do a selection here. I'm going to do a select by polygons, and this is basically looking for anything that's vert welded together. And I'm just going to kind of click on stuff. So all of these pieces here are all vert welded together. All of these pieces here are vert welded together. White here. What did I click? There we go. This whole shoulder and the upper arm are vert welded together. However, if I wanted to paint, say, this thing separately from this, what I can do is, let's go ahead and add a black mask here. I can use my color ID. So now, even though these are all part of the same group here, and you could actually, if you wanted to, go through here and just put this on single polygon or triangle, and then you could go through here and just kind of, you can paint just with triangles here, or you can make a lasso selection if you want to, or you can just do individual triangles here. Like so. But better thing would be to do, let's go ahead and do add mask with color selection, and then if I want to fill any of these individual material ID sections with black, I can just go to here to pick color. I'll be like, you know what, the red I want to be metal, this I want to be black. All the pink magenta areas. And then I'll go ahead and use my polypaint as a mask. So just really quickly be able to do that. So that is basically the function of our material ID map, which is just our polypaint. And how we're seeing that is it's just a fill layer right now. Where that actually lives is down here in your ID. So when I go and do, map by ID selection, it's going to look at these colors and make a mask based on which one I pick. So let's look at some more maps. So our ambient occlusion here, I'm going to drop that into our base color. So our ambient occlusion map, if you have an empty white room with a light bulb in it, what you're going to notice, or just look up in the corners of your room where you're in now, you're going to see in the corners of your room where the edges come together, light kind of, or shadows just kind of park their butts. Same thing as if you put anything on a table or have any two things close to each other, you're going to get a shadow where those two objects meet up. And that just kind of makes everything sit nicely in 3D and make it look realistic. Because if you don't have ambient occlusion, in fact, and it's actually built into the shader too. So I'm putting the ambient occlusion in our color map, and if you're using the PBR model, you generally do not want your ambient occlusion baked into your diffuse. That used to be an old school trick where you would have your color map, and then you would overlay like you would multiply your ambient occlusion map into your color map, and sometimes even your spec map to kind of kill the spec. Which is what the function of the AO map is supposed to be now, is just to make sure that light doesn't get where it's not supposed to. So that's the function of the AO map. And also, the function of this AO map is to be used as a mask. So you'll notice that ambient occlusion kind of collects in the same areas where dirt would. So when we go through and we make this thing dirty, what that's going to do is pull in the AO map and use that as a mask with a bunch of other fancy tricks to kind of collect dirt in those little crevices like that. So that's AO. Curvature, just drop that in. There's our curvature map. And basically it's finding, and our curvature map's not going to be that great because our UVs are all over the place, but what it's essentially doing is giving us a light value where edges are on our convex surfaces, and our concave surfaces are going to be dark in the concave and then light in the convex. So you'll also notice that in the concave areas, that's also another place where dirt likes to go in there and settle. So you'll see concave masks used for dirt as well. Your convex masks will be used for things like edge wear. So it's finding all these edges right in here, and it'll use those light areas to dictate. Generally speaking, if you have a piece of a metallic object and you go roll it down the street, the things that are going to get dinged up on it are going to be all the little worn edges on it. Now, of course, you don't want to wear all the edges perfectly like this, because what are the chances that, and my old art director used to say, it looks like everything was taken apart and then put in a rock tumbler and then put back together again. Things don't wear like that. If there's inside edges in here that aren't going to get a lot of weathering, then yeah, they're not going to be that worn, but these outside edges will. So you got to kind of go in there and do that. Yeah, I've used the marmoset baking at work. I haven't used it at home yet, so I need to just go through there and I need to give that a shot at home. I haven't used it that much just because I don't do a whole lot of baking at the moment, but they got some really, really cool stuff on there. And yeah, the painting out tools for having all the average normals and then being able to paint in and out the different normal map bakes to get rid of the scalloping and stuff is really nice too. Let's see. And once I get more comfortable with that, I might even take these guys into Marmoset to render, but I'm baked in there enough to really warrant me going in there tonight. Thickness map, and this is kind of an inverted thickness map. So if I go in here and do a filter, and we'll do actually, you know what, we don't even need a filter, we need a levels. So I'm going to take this one, we'll do add levels, and we're going to do the base color here, and I'm going to do an invert. So on a thickness map, if you invert the thickness map, that will kind of highlight the areas where the mesh gets thin. So on an organic model, your fingers would be white, and then your middle of your chest and your body would be pretty black. You can kind of use this for a subsurface scattering map, but I've found it's a little bit clunky for that. It makes your fingers look like gummy bears, so it's not all that useful, but it's used in some of the generators here. And then we'll go to the world space is a very good one. So basically, is our world space, object space. So we have a tangent space normal map, which is based on the object itself living in space, and then relative to the surface normals of that object, you will have detail. World space is basically a world projection. So you're going to see when we go over here, it looks all blue, and then we go here, it looks kind of reddish purple. We go over here, it looks orangish. We go up here, it looks yellow. So it's basically like a 6-axis projection, where if this thing was in a box full of single colors and it kind of pushed those colors onto the object, you're basically getting masks. So what they'll use this for is the ability to find upturned surfaces, forward surfaces, side surfaces, and underneath surfaces. So you can do, like, if you want mud splatter, or you want like sun wear, where like plastic kind of gets faded from the sun on the top, it looks healthy from the bottom, or mud splash. You'll use a lot of that, as well as the position map. There it is. Forgot the position map here. So there's the position map, kind of the same deal. You can see there's different color gradients, and usually if we just isolate, let me see if I can do this. Add a levels. We want to do base color, we want to do green channel. So really the green channel is the one I want. So I'm going to go to the red channel, and we'll just make that black. We'll go to the blue channel, make that black. Green channel. So this is our green channel, and you're going to see it's basically going from dark purple to light purple. So this is a really good one for mud splatter. It basically goes from dark at the bottom to light at the top. So when you see the mud splatter, it'll isolate your green channel, which is your Y channel, and just do a position map of your whole object. Now it doesn't matter where your stuff is in space. If you go over here to your 2D only, you're going to see it's just a jumble. It doesn't really give a crap where your UVs are. It's only looking at your object and applying to 3D only, and applying those colors based on the actual object positioning. And that's always the only baker I've seen not choke on the craziest high-res meshes is XNormal. That thing will bake anything I've thrown at it. Maya chokes immediately. Painter can chug, certainly, once you get up to certain poly counts. And Marma said I haven't really taxed it yet, but this UV map took me 5 seconds. I was just auto done in Maya. Easy peasy. Now, like I was saying, that's a garbage way to do your normal or your UV maps, obviously. But all the work we're going to do in Painter will carry through to. If we go in and update, we'll be able to reapply all the work we've done to new UVs without doing any more work. Anyway, so let's go